Hey ChatGPT, why do Jews hate Muhammad and Islam? How did living in Medina influence the Jewish community's feelings about Muhammad becoming a prophet, especially since they hoped for a leader from their own lineage or background?
Surah al-Baqarah, chapter 2, verse 62. Indeed, those who believed and those who were Jews or Christians or Sabians, whoever believed in Allah and the last day and did righteous deeds, will have their reward with their Lord, and no fear will there be concerning them, nor will they grieve. This verse emphasizes that belief in God and righteous actions are what matter, regardless of one's religious background. Cleophy, the majority of the Jewish community moved to Medina from around the world. Jewish communities sought refuge from Roman oppression and political turmoil, seeing Medina as a potential haven and a place to align with anticipated prophetic events. The migration was driven by a mix of religious beliefs, prophetic expectations, and socio-political factors. The discovery of ancient Torah scrolls in Palestine reignited messianic hopes and the anticipation of a future leader. However, unexpectedly, Muhammad, from the lineage of Ishmael, emerged as the last and final prophet, rather than one from Jewish lineage. While some Jews accepted Muhammad as their prophet, many others rejected him out of hatred and envy.
Wow, now I understand why. This is such an amazing discovery for me. I didn't know that. Let's move on to the next segment. Thank you so much, ChatGPT, for the insight. Hey, everyone, take a look at the book in front of the microphone. You can access this book and all others completely for free. It's available for your reading pleasure and to gain more knowledge. You can also download the book for offline reading. The link is provided on the screen and in the video description. Now, let me invite Jack and Wilson for a deeper discussion on this topic. Hey everyone, before we get started, I noticed in my YouTube channel analytics that many of you watching aren't subscribed. If you could do me a big favor and hit that subscribe button, I'd really appreciate it. It motivates me and helps the channel grow, so I can create more videos like the one you're about to see. Also, as some of you requested, my team has launched a website where you can read my books and find transcripts of all my videos in the form of small booklets. The link is in video description. We're working hard to produce informative videos daily, along with books and transcripts. I'd love your help in spreading dawah, calling to Allah's message. Please click the join button to show your support. Now, let's dive in.
Okay, so get this, we're diving into like a period of history just overflowing with prophecy and political drama and the very beginnings of Islam.
Sounds intense.
Imagine just uprooting your entire life based on like this belief that a prophesied leader is about to appear.
Wow.
That's what some Jewish communities did centuries ago, migrating to Medina.
Really fascinating stuff.
Yeah, and so you've brought in some incredible sources for this deep dive.
I did.
Excerpts from Great Miracles of Islam and like some notes from a chat you had with ChatGPT.
Yeah, that's right.
So how do we even begin to like figure out why this migration happened and how it impacted the relationship between Jewish and early Muslim communities?
Well, those prophecies are a good place to start.
Okay.
Both sources point to those Jewish scriptures, like specifically the Torah, and it's prophecies about this future leader who would bring justice and guidance, much like Moses,
Yeah, okay.
Deuteronomy 18.18, it's like a key passage here. God promises to raise up a prophet like me.
Oh, wow.
A statement that like fueled all this messianic expectation.
Yeah, so it's like these communities were just living with this constant anticipation.
Yeah.
Always searching for signs that this leader was about to emerge.
Exactly. And then, as if to add to that anticipation, they discover these ancient Torah scrolls.
Whoa.
Like, imagine uncovering these lost interpretations.
Yeah.
That would fuel their belief even more that this leader was close at hand.
Yeah, I can only imagine all the debates and the discussions.
Well, absolutely.
People going through these scrolls trying to figure out what they mean.
Yeah, and then word started spreading that Medina was the place. This is where the prophecy might unfold. So it becomes like this focal point drawing those seeking a fresh start, not just spiritually, but also politically.
Oh, okay.
Because we can't forget that this was a time of serious upheaval.
Right.
With the Roman Empire causing chaos all over the region.
Yeah, that adds like a whole other layer to this story.
Yeah.
What was life like for these communities under Roman rule?
Well, Roman conquests, especially in Judea, they were brutal.
Oh, gosh.
Widespread devastation and displacement. Just imagine the fear and the instability.
Yeah.
No wonder Medina, with its promise of peace and that potential fulfillment of prophecies, became like a beacon of hope.
Yeah, so it was more than just a spiritual destination. It was like a sanctuary.
Exactly.
Away from all that chaos.
Yeah.
So they go to Medina seeking refuge, but how did these Jewish communities actually establish themselves in this new land?
They thrived, actually.
Oh, wow.
Great Miracles of Islam highlights how these three Jewish tribes, Banu Kainuka, Banu Nadir, and Banu Qurayza, they became super prominent.
Okay.
They were really skilled in agriculture, particularly with date palms.
Interesting.
And they made themselves key players in Medina's trade networks.
So they weren't just surviving, they were building a whole new life.
Exactly.
I can't imagine it was all smooth sailing, though, right?
Oh.
Especially with so many different groups coming together in one place.
Right.
How does Medina handle all of these cultures and beliefs?
Surprisingly, they made a real effort to build a society that respected those differences. They created a constitution of Medina.
Whoa, a constitution.
It was this document that aimed for peaceful coexistence and recognized all the diverse religious communities living in the city.
That's incredible. So it acknowledged all the different communities, but did it really address like the power dynamics at play?
That's a great point.
It's not like they just erased all the inherent tensions, right?
Right, the Constitution was more of a starting point than a perfect solution.
Makes sense.
You know, it recognized all the different communities,
Uh-huh.
but it didn't erase the tensions that came with competing interests and different worldviews.
So this peace in Medina, it gets disrupted when Muhammad arrives in 622 CE,
Right,
and that marks like a whole new chapter.
it does.
Your ChatGPT notes point out this one really fascinating detail.
What's that?
Some Jewish tribes, they saw a connection between Muhammad's message and their own prophecies.
Right, and that reaction is super important
Okay.
because it shows just how complex the whole situation was.
Yeah.
You have Muhammad preaching monotheism,
Uh-huh.
which resonated with some who were already waiting for a divinely appointed leader.
Makes sense.
But at the same time, your ChatGPT source emphasizes that many were very skeptical
Why is that?
because they believed this leader would come from their lineage, not from Ishmael's lineage, which is where Muhammad traces back to.
It makes you think about how we interpret prophecies
Yeah,
and how our hopes and expectations really shape our understanding of even the clearest signs.
absolutely.
So how did these different views play out as Muhammad became more prominent in Medina?
Well, that's where things get even more interesting.
Okay.
The Battle of Badr in 624 CE is a big turning point.
Okay.
The Muslims won that battle. And it's not just a military victory.
Right.
It's how many people started to view Muhammad.
Mm.
Some were impressed by this victory,
Uh-huh.
saw it as divine intervention,
Okay.
started to see Muhammad in a more positive light.
And others?
Others grew even more hostile. They saw his power as a threat.
Almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
It is.
Where one side sees confirmation and the other sees their fears magnified.
Exactly. And that tension didn't just disappear.
Right, I can imagine.
It escalated to the point where two Jewish tribes, Banu Kainuka and Banu Nadir,
Yeah.
they were accused of conspiring against Muhammad,
Oh, no.
and they were kicked out of Medina.
What a terrible turn of events. Was it just religious differences or was there more to it?
It's never that simple, is it?
Right.
I mean, religious beliefs played a role,
Yeah.
but we have to remember the politics of the time.
Yeah.
Power was constantly shifting.
Uh-huh.
Even the smallest perceived threat could lead to really drastic actions.
And these accusations of conspiracy, whether true or not,
Yeah.
just further divided the communities.
Exactly.
Created so much fear.
Yeah.
So the peace that they tried to build with that constitution
Yeah,
couldn't hold up against all this tension.
it couldn't.
So then what happened?
Well, the conflict reached its peak with the Battle of Khaybar in 629 CE,
Okay.
a decisive victory for the Muslims,
Uh-huh.
which led to the defeat of all the remaining Jewish tribes in the area.
Wow.
Their power was gone, and while some were allowed to stay in Medina,
Yeah.
it was under really strict conditions. It was a shift in power.
Wow. So we see this really interesting trajectory.
Yeah,
You know, it starts with all this anticipation, fueled by these prophecies,
right.
then this clash of ideologies,
Yeah,
and ultimately a complete reshaping of Medina.
yeah.
So how do you think these early interactions shaped the long-term relationship between these communities?
It's complex. There's no care about that. There
Yeah.
are moments of coexistence and attempts to find common ground.
Right.
But then there's conflict and a shift in dominance.
Yeah.
It's important to remember that these events set the stage for centuries of interaction, both good and bad, between these communities.
This deep dive is already making me think so much.
It is fascinating.
Seems like understanding this early period is key to making sense of what came later.
Absolutely, and that's where we'll pick up next time.
Okay.
Exploring how these early interactions affected history and continue to shape the relationship between Jewish and Muslim communities today.
So we've been talking about the Jewish migration to Medina
Uh-huh.
and the rise of Islam.
Right.
But there's another place that's like super important to this story.
Yeah, what's that?
Mecca.
Ah, Mecca.
Great Miracles of Islam actually sheds light on some often overlooked parts of its history.
Really?
So before Islam, Mecca was this like bustling commercial hub
Hmm.
right on those major trade routes.
So like a crossroads.
Yeah, not just for goods, but for ideas and cultures, too.
Exactly. And at the heart of all this was the Kaaba,
Oh, the Kaaba.
this structure that predates Islam
Right.
and has a unique significance in the story.
Yeah, that iconic cube-shaped structure that's like instantly recognizable,
Yeah.
even to people who don't know much about Islamic history.
Exactly. It's a really powerful symbol. And what's interesting is that
Yeah.
even before Islam, the Kaaba was considered sacred, though Mecca at that time was polytheistic.
Oh, wow.
It was like a city with tons of deities and idols.
So many gods.
Yeah, and it was the Quraysh tribe, Muhammad's own tribe,
Right.
who controlled Mecca and the Kaaba,
Okay.
holding both religious and political power.
Wow. So Muhammad was born into this family, deeply connected to this religious system,
Yeah.
a system that he would eventually challenge.
Exactly. And Great Miracles of Islam talks about this episode where Muhammad, as a young man, helped resolve a dispute.
Really?
During the reconstruction of the Kaaba,
Okay.
there were floods that damaged it.
Oh, wow.
And all these tribes couldn't agree on who would have the honor of placing the black stone back into the structure.
Oh, gosh, that sounds so tense.
It was, imagine the potential for things to turn violent.
Yeah, it could have been a disaster.
Totally. But Muhammad stepped in and offered a solution.
What did he say?
He suggested they put the stone on a cloak
Okay.
and have representatives from all the tribes lift it together.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, it was a brilliant move.
Totally prevented violence.
Exactly, and brought them together.
It's almost like it foreshadows his later role as a peacemaker,
Yeah.
bringing people together.
And it's interesting that he already had this reputation for being fair,
Right.
even before the revelations.
Yeah.
This is how he earned the title Al-Amin,
What does that mean?
the trustworthy. A true testament to his character.
Yeah.
But then his life takes this major turn with the revelations
Right.
changing everything.
So his message of monotheism was totally different from what they believed.
Oh, absolutely.
A huge challenge to Meccan society.
Definitely. And we see this in the Quran, the early verses, especially in Surah Al-Mudathir.
Yeah.
They call for a transformation, rejecting idolatry and embracing the worship of one God.
So it was about changing their practices,
Yeah.
but also their values.
Exactly. It was a call for a complete societal shift.
And that kind of shift is going to cause problems.
Of course, especially with the Quraysh elite.
Right.
They wanted to keep things the way they were.
It's like those in power always feeling threatened
Yeah,
when something challenges their authority.
exactly. So how did the Quraysh react to this new threat?
Yeah, good question.
Well, they tried to suppress the Muslim community at first,
How?
using different tactics like social ostracism, economic sanctions,
Wow.
even physical persecution.
They were desperate to stop Muhammad and his followers.
They didn't want this new faith to spread.
Our sources mention a boycott against Muhammad's own clan, the Banu Hashim.
Yeah.
What was the point of that?
It was a way to isolate Muhammad,
Okay.
to pressure his clan to abandon him. They wanted to cut off their resources, force them into submission.
Such a brutal tactic.
It was, but despite all of this, Muhammad and his followers persisted.
Leading to the Hijra,
Yes, the migration to Medina.
which we've already talked about.
We have.
And that was a major turning point.
It was.
For the Muslim community and for history.
Absolutely, it showed their resilience,
Uh-huh.
their commitment to their faith.
And their determination to build a society based on their principles.
Exactly, and it was the start of a new chapter,
Okay.
one of growth and expansion that would lead them back to Mecca.
Interesting. So even as tensions were rising, the Hajj,
Yeah,
the pilgrimage to Mecca, remained a central part of their faith.
that's a great point.
It shows how important Mecca is to Islamic tradition.
It does,
The Hajj is one of the 5 pillars of Islam.
right.
It actually predates the rise of Islam itself.
Wow.
It's rooted in Abrahamic history.
So imagine Muslims from all over
Yeah.
coming together in Mecca.
Such a powerful demonstration of their shared faith.
So even with all this tension, Muslims were still expected to make the pilgrimage
They were.
to a city controlled by those who opposed them.
Yeah, so how did the Quraysh react to all these pilgrims?
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering.
There was a lot of resistance at first.
Mhm.
In 628 CE, Muhammad and his followers were actually blocked from entering Mecca.
And that led to the Treaty of Hudaybiyah.
Right, a temporary truce.
Exactly. It was a way for both sides to calm things down.
Okay.
The moment of peace.
And it gave Muslims access to Mecca for the pilgrimage.
Right. But it didn't last.
Oh, no.
Quraysh broke the treaty,
Man.
which set the stage for the conquest of Mecca in 630 CE.
Wow, that must have been huge.
It was a turning point for sure.
So Muhammad leads this force and marches on Mecca,
Yeah,
but it wasn't a bloody conquest.
you're right. A lot of the Meccans surrendered.
They knew they couldn't win.
I think they saw that the assistance was pointless.
So Muhammad enters Mecca
Yes.
and orders the destruction of the idols in the Kaaba.
Such a symbolic act.
Yeah, it was the end of polytheism in Mecca.
And it solidified Mecca as the spiritual center of Islam.
It's incredible how they achieved this without a lot of bloodshed.
It is.
It really shows Muhammad's leadership.
And it paved the way for the development of Islamic law and ethics.
Okay, let's talk about that.
Sure.
How did Islamic law or Sharia come about?
Well, it's based on the Quran and the Sunnah.
Uh-huh.
The teachings and practices of Muhammad.
Right.
These sources laid the foundation for this comprehensive legal system.
Wow.
It wasn't just about religious rituals.
Okay.
It covered personal conduct, family matters,
Uh-huh.
economic transactions, even criminal justice.
It sounds like a blueprint for an Islamic society.
It was. And it was based on core ethical principles:
Like what?
justice, compassion, and the pursuit of knowledge.
Those are principles that could guide individuals and the whole society.
Exactly. They weren't just abstract ideas.
Right.
They had real-world applications.
Can you give me an example?
Sure, take justice, for instance.
Okay.
The Quran emphasizes fairness in everything,
Yeah.
from personal interactions to legal decisions.
It was about more than just punishment.
Right.
It was about creating a just society,
Exactly. A social order where everyone is treated fairly.
no matter their background.
Right. And alongside justice is compassion.
Uh-huh.
Islam encourages kindness and understanding,
Yeah.
building empathy and a sense of community.
Those are such relevant principles, even today,
They are timeless.
especially in a world that's so divided.
They remind us that we're all connected.
Exactly.
And then there's the emphasis on knowledge,
Uh-huh.
a cornerstone of Islam.
It's seen as a moral obligation,
It is.
and it's influenced so much.
It has, from scholarship to the arts.
Wow. It's amazing how these principles are woven into Islamic law.
They are.
But how did it address more practical things like family?
Well, Islamic law offers guidelines on marriage, divorce, inheritance,
Okay.
all kinds of family matters.
So it's like a framework for building families,
Yet within the context of Islamic principles.
emphasizing those family bonds.
Exactly. And when it comes to criminal justice,
Uh-huh.
Islamic law has a system of punishments
Okay.
to maintain order and prevent wrongdoing.
Makes sense, but it's not all about punishment, right?
Right. It aims to balance accountability with compassion and fairness.
And what about economic justice?
That's key too. The prohibition of usury or riba
Yeah.
is a central principle.
So it's about fairness in financial dealings.
Yes.
Preventing exploitation.
Exactly. And creating an economic system that benefits everyone.
So an economic system aligned with Islamic ethics.
Exactly. But it's important to remember
What's that?
that applying Islamic law has been difficult at times.
Why is that?
Well, the world has changed so much.
Right.
Globalization, technology, evolving social norms.
It must be hard to interpret these ancient laws.
It is. It's like trying to fit a square peg in a round hole.
Yeah.
But this has led to reform movements. Scholars are trying to bridge that gap
Okay.
between the Quran and Sunnah and the 21st century.
It's an ongoing process.
It is a constant dialogue between tradition and the modern world.
So as we look back on all of this,
Yeah.
what stands out to you?
What stands out to me is that these early events,
Uh-huh.
prophecies, migrations, battles, the establishment of Islam,
Yeah.
they set the stage for centuries of interaction between these two communities.
It's like a pain reaction.
It is.
Where every event has a lasting impact.
And it shows how important understanding the past is
Exactly.
for navigating the present.
Our next segment will focus on just that,
Oh.
where Jewish-Muslim relations stand today.
A complex and important topic.
Yeah.
It's a conversation that requires us to grapple with history,
Uh-huh.
the impact of past conflicts,
Right.
and the potential for understanding.
In a world that needs it now more than ever.
It does.
So we've gone through those ancient prophecies and seen the birth of this new faith and explored all those complex dynamics between those early Jewish and Muslim communities.
It's been quite a journey.
Now we got to grapple with this question that's still shaping our world today. Where do Jewish-Muslim relations stand in the 21st century?
It's a big question.
It feels like we're stepping into a minefield.
It could be a sensitive topic.
So much history
There's...
and deeply held perspectives.
Where do we even begin?
Right.
Well, we can't ignore all that historical baggage.
True.
It shapes how people see each other.
Yeah.
Conflicts like the Crusades, the Inquisition,
Yeah.
and more recently, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict.
Right.
Those have left these deep wounds.
Yeah.
fueling mistrust and anger on both sides.
It's like this never-ending cycle of conflict.
It can feel that way.
Great Miracles of Islam also talks about the rise of nationalism in the 20th century as a major factor.
Yeah, nationalism definitely added another layer of complexity.
Okay.
Zionism and Arab nationalism, especially after World War II,
Right.
made things even more difficult.
So the creation of Israel in 1948
Yeah,
and the conflicts that followed,
right.
the displacement of Palestinians, it became this focal point for tension,
It did.
a wound that's still open.
Unfortunately, it's a really sensitive issue
Yeah.
with strong emotions on all sides.
It makes finding a solution seem impossible.
It's a tough situation for sure.
So it's like generations have grown up in this conflict,
Right.
inheriting all that pain
Right.
and resentment.
It's heartbreaking.
It feels like there's no way out.
Yeah, and it's important to remember
Okay.
that politics plays a role.
Right, those power shrivels.
Yeah, as long as the Israeli-Palestinian conflict continues,
Yeah.
it's going to be hard to find peace.
So politics gets in the way of real reconciliation.
It often does, but there's always hope.
Okay, I like that.
What gives me hope are all the people working to bridge the divide.
Yeah.
Those grassroots initiatives, building relationships at the community level.
Like those mentioned in your ChatGPT notes.
Right.
The Muslim-Jewish Conference.
Yeah.
The Interfaith Youth Corps.
Those are groups that are challenging the narrative.
They're showing that another way is possible.
Exactly.
It's inspiring to see people refusing to give up.
It is.
Choosing to make a difference.
Right. They're living proof that even when things are tough,
Yeah.
we can overcome anything.
It's not about pretending there's no conflict.
No.
It's about acknowledging those differences and having respectful conversations.
Exactly. Finding common ground.
Great Miracles of Islam talks about this shared cultural heritage that Jewish and Muslim communities have.
Yes, a long history.
And so are there efforts to celebrate that?
Absolutely.
To remind people of those common roots?
There are festivals, events that bring people together through music, art, food.
Okay.
Storytelling, like the Jerusalem Festival of Light.
Yeah.
It showcases both Jewish and Muslim art.
And it shows what can happen
It does.
when cultures come together.
It's a reminder that beyond all the politics,
Yeah.
there's so much shared history.
Right.
It can bring communities closer.
What about in academia? Are Jewish and Muslim scholars working together?
There's definitely been a rise in collaboration.
Oh, that's great.
They're recognizing that to understand each other,
Yeah.
you need to delve into their traditions.
Right.
Explore those shared themes.
Have those theological discussions.
Yeah, it's about fostering respect through knowledge and research.
Knowledge can help break down those prejudices.
It can,
Build those bridges.
but we have to be realistic.
Okay.
There are still huge challenges,
Right.
deep-seated prejudices
And misconceptions.
that fuel division.
Those stereotypes are everywhere.
They are.
Especially in the media.
Yeah, focusing on conflict,
Right.
ignoring all those stories of cooperation.
It's like we only see the bad stuff.
It can feel that way. And then there's the rise of extremism.
On both sides.
Yeah.
Those who use religion for their own agendas.
Right.
Committing acts of violence. It just pushes everyone further apart.
Extremism is a problem.
It is.
It feeds on fear and ignorance.
So what can we do?
Both communities have to confront it.
Okay.
Condemn violence.
Promote understanding and tolerance.
Yeah, because peace requires constant effort.
So with all these challenges, what can we actually do?
To build a more peaceful future,
Right.
dialogue is key.
Okay.
Creating spaces for honest conversations.
Where people can listen,
Yeah, hear each other's stories.
challenge their own assumptions.
Exactly. It's about recognizing
Yeah.
that behind all the labels,
Uh-huh.
we're all human.
Education is important too.
It is.
Teaching kids about each other's cultures and faiths.
Imagine a future
Yeah.
where kids see each other as human beings.
Not defined by religion or nationality.
Exactly. Worthy of respect.
That's a beautiful vision.
It is.
But what about religious leaders? Can they help?
They have a huge responsibility
Yeah.
to be leaders of peace,
Okay.
to speak out against hatred and violence.
Right.
Imagine rabbis and imams working together,
Wow.
calling for peace and understanding.
That would be powerful.
It would.
It's about reminding people
Yeah,
that Judaism and Islam share those values.
they do.
Justice, compassion, the sanctity of life.
Those values can bring people together,
It's about recognizing those shared values.
Yeah.
Our common humanity.
choosing hope over despair,
Dialogue over silence.
understanding over prejudice.
A more peaceful future is possible.
It is.
But it takes effort.
It does.
A willingness to listen.
To learn, to build bridges.
This has been a really incredible journey. It has.
A roller coaster of emotions, for sure.
Yeah.
But it reminds us
Yeah.
that we all have a role to play.
In building a more peaceful future.
It's been a privilege to talk about this with you.
It has.
And it leaves us with a question.
Okay.
What role will each of us play in building a future where Jewish and Muslim communities can live together in peace?
That's a great question to end on.
It is.
This deep dive has given us so much to think about,
It has.
and I hope it inspires you, our listeners,
Me too.
to keep exploring this important relationship.
It's a fascinating one.
Until next time, keep diving deep.
Thank you for joining us for today's podcast. I hope you've gained some valuable insights. If you're a truth seeker, yearning for divine light and ready to step out of darkness, now is your moment. The truth is that Allah is the one and only creator of the universe. He has sent over 124,000 messengers and prophets to guide humanity, starting with Adam and culminating with the final messenger, Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon them all. If you resonate with this message, you might be ready to embrace Islam. Simply recite the Shahada, the Islamic declaration of faith. For further support, feel free to join our WhatsApp group. You can send us a private message there. The link is in the video description. Don't wait until it's too late. We look forward to connecting with you soon.